Aloha all. Welcome. I'm going to talk today about the 19th gene key that has been transiting. And that is probably one of the gene keys that is going under intense mutation in the collective as we begin to kind of take back our sovereignty and go through this awakening process. It's the shadow of codependency. And we can see how deeply embedded that is in our relationships, in our society and culture, in our government, in our economy. I mean, I feel like the shadow of codependency, it like infiltrates everything. And it's super interesting because this key, the 19th gene key, is part of the ring of Gaia. And this 19th, the 60th, and the 61st key make up the codon ring. And it's also partnered with the 33rd key of forgetting, right? So when we forget who we actually are, like it's like we're born into this life knowing who we are. And as we grow up, we go through this forgetting process, or what I would call like this veiling process. We forget how connected we are to all life. And the codon ring of Gaia and its gifts and its cities, they remind us when they unlock and awaken within us, they remind us of our innate connection to old life and to the resonance of our mother Gaia, and that we are all a part of the same family, completely interconnected. But when we fall into the shadow of codependency, it's codependency at its heart. We become codependent out of a sense of lack and a sense of fear, like there's not enough for a not enoughness. There is a limited amount of love. There's a limited amount of money. There's a limited amount of food. Like all these stories that get embedded in us are all about the sense of lack and not enough. And so we project fear onto our outer life because we fear that there is not enough. And it is these fear projections that cause us to try to source safety from outside of ourselves. And that's, for me, as this key opens, what I've really come to is that it's the sourcing outside of self for something to make you feel safe and secure that creates the codependency. I feel safe because I have this person in my life, so therefore I feel loved and valued. I feel safe because I have now enough money in the bank. Or I don't have enough money in the bank, so I need to reach and grasp and try to get more for myself. I'm buying myself these material things so I feel validated and that I've made it in this world. So there's all these ways, and religion is one of the big ways, right? It's one of the big programs of codependency. It's this idea that there is a God outside yourself. It's the idea that there's something more exalted outside of you that you have to try and find. This key is so profound in the idea of sourcing God, divine, within yourself. And so it takes a really brave soul, to begin to pull up those anchor points, to begin to recognize them, first of all, when you need a person to be different than what they are so that you can feel like you have your needs met. I feel like for me, the way this key is opened up is pretty contradictory to how we're taught relationships are supposed to be. We're supposed to compromise parts of ourself, or the other should be meeting our needs in a certain way. And we often go into relationship with an expectation of how somebody needs to show up for us so that we can get our needs met. And in my contemplation, I feel like it's a distorted version of love. Having traversed a few really deep relationships, I know that for me at this stage, the truth of this key is that when I am in relationship with another, it's not because I need them to be anything other than what they are in this moment. And if I'm coming in as a sovereign being who actually internally is meeting my own needs for safety and security and love, then the one that shows up is in coherence and in resonance. I do not need them to change anything about themselves. I get to allow them to be as they are in their own process without projecting any need for them to be different. And that I know is it may be real triggering, actually, that this thought that when we're in relationship, the other is supposed to be a certain way. If the other person is not who you want them to be, then maybe they're just simply not the right person for you, and that you don't have to spend so much time trying to get them to change to be what you want. If you're trying to get somebody to change to be what you want, they're probably not the right person for you. And that takes a tremendous amount of, I would say, self-knowledge and emotional intelligence to let somebody go who is not for you. I feel like this is where we're coming into some deep discernment here with what actually is in alignment for us, that when it comes into our life, we don't have to shift it or change it some way to fit into what we want it to be. It's an interesting thing to contemplate. This last relationship that I had, there such deep connection, right? Beautiful conversations, deep love there. And I began to see how fundamentally we were choosing different paths in life. We were just in different places in life and wanted different things, and saw certain things that were pivotal for both of us through like a different lens. And it was beautiful because I got to see that through his lens, actually his life's path is perfect for him. Even if it is not in alignment with mine, I don't need him to change what he's doing in order to meet me in my path. We get to come together where we are in coherence and we're in love and we're in resonance, and I get to witness him in his path without needing to change a single thing. And that is profound. So it's really interesting to allow that love to be without trying to change another person and where they're at in their life. So really digging into where you feel, where you are codependent, and bringing awareness to it and recognition to it, and not projecting your needs outward it's an incredible gift to give yourself. It gives yourself tremendous freedom when you are not codependent on another to have your needs met. And this leads into the gift of sensitivity. When we've softened enough to not actually need another to be any certain way, even a culture to be a certain way, our society to be a certain way, it really allows us to become really sensitized to what's needed in the moment without any kind of projection. And this is the gift of sensitivity. This is like known as the whisperers. And it's super interesting because the less that we need it to be a certain way, the more sensitive we become to what's needed in every moment. And when we sensitize ourselves to what's needed, you can tell that there is not a sense of lack or a sense of fear underlying that. You're actually meeting the moment with what's needed in your fullness, in your independence, right? So this gift of sensitivity is so connected to our independence. Our independence allows us to feel how we can give to each person in every moment, how we can give to a situation in a moment, but there's no fear or lack under it. It's like we're able to show up in our fullness without any kind of projection around it. There's a purity to that energy then. It's like clean. It doesn't have any there's not even a thread of energetic like neediness to it. It's like giving from the overflowing cup. And this gift is really beautiful because it's called the whisperers, because you then become sensitized to everything in your environment, meaning Mother Nature. And in this way, this key is super shamanic because you're sensitized to all of the consciousness and beings in your surroundings. You're sensitized to the singing of the birds. You're sensitized to the animals that are around you. They may be pets, they may be wild animals. You're sensitized to the trees and the flowers. It's almost like you're so sensitive that you can feel this other realm opening up where you are able to communicate with animals in nature, mammals even. Wild creatures start to come to you and you start to kind of understand the messages that they're bringing to you in every moment. It's the ring of Gaia, right? So you have this deep connection to Gaia and all the creatures and all the consciousness. And it's like this independence starts to become interdependent. It's like you're touching all consciousness from a place of that pure state. There's no fear. The fear starts to go because you're in trust of everything that's moving through. And, one of the things that's super interesting that I remember this free diver talking about, because this key also is known as the future human, and we talk about in this key, the future human, in a way will transcend the need to physically touch, because our aura, our auric resonance will be able to touch and interpenetrate the aura of all other consciousness. So there's this idea in this key of this individual identity, and yet we're also merging with all other life forms through the aura. So it's like we're having this individualized experience of self while being interconnected to all things. And this is where the codependence actually has the seed of interdependence within it, because it's the same touching of or connecting with other beings, but it has lost any sense of lack and there's no longer any fear. So we become interdependent where we're all working as one, but without a sense of needing anything or needing to change anything. Again, it's coming from a pure place of like divine or universal love and service rather than a need to have something for the individualized self. Hopefully that makes sense. But as I was saying, this free diver was talking about diving with sea mammals, with like the dolphins and the whales, and she was mentioning that when you're down there with them, it's like you are having a telepathic conversation or a telepathic communion with them. And if you were to break that touch barrier by actually physically touching them, you actually are severing the connection, which I found super interesting, having known about this key as well. So it's like we can have a feeling of being viscerally connected without necessarily having to physically be touching something. So this also speaks to the field, the morphic resonance field, right? We can have the ability to be in heart coherence, heart contact. We have the ability of our prayers to not know any time or any space, the ability to actually send healing energy to other beings and have them actually feel it and have a physical experience of healing, and the power of prayers to kind of change or reconstruct the field. This is how all distance healing happens, and this is how telepathic communication happens. There's no time and there's no space. We're all connected all the time. So this speaks to the gift of the whisperers, and the city of this key is sacrifice. And in this key, what that means is actually there's a point at which we sacrifice our individual self, our need for anything for ourself, where we're actually moving into such deep resonance and coherence with the whole that we actually begin to drop the idea of these individuated self or the persona or the personality that we have constructed. We're coming into coherence with the entire field. And these citic states are like very heightened, enlightened states. So you can feel the sense of it as those citic states start to kind of descend and ascend at the same time. It's like almost like your personality as you've known it just begins to dissolve. Like you can feel almost viscerally this annihilation of the self structure starting to go, and at the same time starting to feel the consciousness of everything within you. Even though it's outside of you, when your eyes are open and you're pointed outwards, it's actually happening inside of you. So all the cities, right? There's a paradoxical nature to them. It's happening inside of you, but you open your eyes and it's like you're seeing the holographic universe. You're seeing what's happening inside of you being projected outward, like you are the projector. So the city of sacrifice, which it's a word that can have, that can trigger people, this idea of sacrifice. And so there's an invitation in the city to feel into what that actually means. Like this code, for me, is a very Christed code. I think of Christ on the cross, and he's like, literally the story is he's dying for all our sins, but I don't see it that way. I see him as feeling that city of sacrifice, in that all beings are moving through him as God consciousness. So yes, we will sacrifice ourselves for all beings, for all consciousness, for all life. And there is like this divine annihilation that is so intoxicating and so loving, that is to like die into life with such trust and let go of, the vision is like to let go of the banks of the river and let the rapids take you, let the currents take you. It's like moving, letting go and going into the ocean of oneness again. And so there can be a sense of fear that comes up with this idea of sacrifice. But it's a very profound key to contemplate, because the more I contemplate it, the more I feel like it expands and opens up within me. So my advice would be for this key is just start to notice the codependent habits. Start to notice where you want somebody to show up for you differently than they are, and how you maybe as opposed to needing somebody to be other than they are, maybe you can give yourself what you're looking for, and notice how that feels in your body when you step into your own independence and say, hey, I can give myself this space. I can give myself this love. I can give myself this security. And start to source it from within you and start to notice what happens inwardly and then what starts to happen outwardly from that. So I hope this has helped a little bit kind of open up an expression to this 19th gene key, which is super, super, super deep and going through a lot of mutation in the collective right now. So let me know what you think. I have a feeling that I'm going to continue this contemplation on this 19th gene key because it's really vast, and I feel like it's in the collective in a really big way, and it's cracking us open right now. So I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or contemplations that you'd like to share, please leave it in the comments. I deeply appreciate all your comments and all the interaction. And thank you for watching, and have a blessed day. Aloha.